Yes, Friday is a B day. So this is the only other day of class. Now, next week, I guess we should go ahead and discuss next week since this is our last day of class this week. Next week, Monday is a holiday. There's no school on Monday. It's Martin Luther King Day, right? It's where we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. there. And it's also the College Football National Championship Day. It's the Presidential Inauguration Day. It's just a busy day, so no one has time for school. There's a lot going on. So we got Monday. We will not meet, which means Wednesday we will have class next week. Normally, the third week we start our normal schedule, which we only meet on Mondays and Tuesdays for all of our classes. Then you only have to be here if your grade's below 70%. And at this point, your grade be only be below 70% if you haven't turned things in, which we need to check that this morning and see how we've done things on turning things in. And I want to help anyone with any trouble they're having writing a welcome back program, because I know we do have new students in here. We have returning students whose brain is still on Christmas break and they're struggling to get that written. And so we just want to make sure we're all on the same page and understand how to get started for the semester. So, man, where's everybody at this morning? We're still missing a lot of students. But anyway, make sure your camera's on, guys. Um, let's talk about. I want to talk about pseudocode first off, because we really haven't spent any time talking about pseudocode this semester, and that's part of that assignment we had last week. And so, if you're new, you're still like, I don't know what the pseudocode is. Perhaps you studied pseudocode back in your fall semester class. Hopefully, you did. But if you've not looked at pseudocode, let's take a look at it now. I'm going to pull it up. I found this first semester, found the lesson where we talked about pseudocode, so I wanted to bring that up. If you go back to Module 1, back to September, the fifth lesson, 1.05, so I'm putting that up here on the screen, 1.05, right up here at the top, you can see it's 1.05, and we're on page 3. Of lesson 1.05, and that's where we introduced pseudocode back in September. So I wanted to bring this back out so we can kind of talk about that. Pseudocode should be the simplest part of your program, and yet so many of you struggle with this. And it's like, come on, guys, it's fake code. It's just writing words, which you've done for years. Writing code you haven't done for years, perhaps, but writing words you have. Says now that we're getting into more complex coding like input statements, it's time to talk about pseudocode. So pseudocode is an outline of your code that goes through the steps individually in an easy to understand human language. There's no Python code here. Pseudo means fake, right? It's not real code, it's fake code. So as you begin to write longer code, you want to create a plan so you don't get lost. So you outline your code in just plain old English. Helps you structure what code that you're going to write. So we call this pseudocode, which means false or fake code. So here's some sample pseudocode. So we can look at the pseudocode and understand what the program is going to do. That's what pseudocode is for. For someone who does not understand program, if we hand them our pseudocode and say, here, I'd like you to read this. Can you tell me what my program is going to do? Someone that knows, take it to your grandma. Grandma, can you tell what my program's going to do? If she can read your pseudocode and tell you what your program's going to do, that's good pseudocode. But if you put all these input and fancy Python statements in your pseudocode, they're going to go, I don't know, it looks like some kind of code. Then you did it wrong. Simple as that. Let's look at this. Pseudocode. Input. Okay, so they're going to have some input statements in this program to where the user is going to have to type in some input. Input the name of the sandwich, the type of bread, the meat, toppings. Okay, so this is apparently going to be a program where someone's like ordering a sandwich. Welcome to my sandwich shop. I'm happy to take your order. What type of sandwich would you like? Name of sandwich. What type of bread would you like on this? What meat would you like? What toppings would you like? That's apparently what this program is going to be. And here's the output. So they said, okay, this program has input and output. The output will be display a message with the sandwich details, including the name, bread, meat, and toppings. I can almost see the program already just from reading the pseudocode. So over here on the right are tips for writing good pseudocode. Use it to plan out your program from start to finish. Start to finish. Outline your steps as clearly as possible. Use everyday words, not code. That's a big part of it. I take off for pseudocode when I get Python code turned in for pseudocode. I don't give you credit for that. That's not pseudocode. So you don't get credit for pseudocode if that's what you're turning in. Not Python code. That should be in huge capital letters right there. It should be a larger font with bold, everything. Use short phrases to decide the steps, like input, first name, last name. You don't have to type a whole sentence, just enough words to understand what you're doing. And all pseudocodes look different. If we all wrote a pseudo, if I gave you an assignment, okay, we're going to write a program on how to bathe a dog, and I just want you to write the pseudocode. Everybody's pseudocode would look a little different here. Nobody would have the exact same pseudocode. Now, we might have code that looks the same when we get there because the Python code is the Python code. I mean, we would have probably at least 4 different programs. I mean, a lot of differences in the code as well, but there's a lot more chance that a lot of the code would look the same, but the pseudocode wouldn't, because you guys speak differently, use different words. So make sure to review and make changes as necessary. Sometimes we write our pseudocode and then we go, oh, I forgot I need to tell them how much this sandwich is going to cost. I might need to go back to my pseudocode and go, oh, and display the price. And maybe up here after the input, I need to put calculate the price, calculate cost of sandwich. And then add that to my output that I'm printing. Here's what your total is. So as I'm writing my program, I may need to go back to my pseudocode and adjust things because, oh, I forgot I need to do this. So let me go put that back in my pseudocode. And I'm going to include this. So when I write my program, my pseudocode should match what my program looks like. Not every single line is going to match like this. This is just saying, here's what the inputs are. This doesn't say there's a main statement. There's all that kind of stuff. Main function. I mean, this didn't say define main function. You could put that in your pseudocode. That's fine. If you want to say define your main function, just so you don't forget that. But it's not totally necessary. The pseudocode should basically list the primary things you're doing in your program. Here's the inputs I need. If you have any calculations, calculate sales tax, calculate total, calculate sandwich price. You don't have to put exactly how to calculate the sales tax. Calculate sales tax by taking the price and then adding 9.25%. You don't have to put that in the pseudocode. You could say calculate 9.25% sales tax if you want to, just to remind yourself what the percentage is. But the key to pseudocode is having a plan in just plain English that you can refer to as you write the program. Okay, I did an input statement. They put their sandwich of bread and meat. Great. And then I'm going to go back in my pseudocode and says, oh, that's right. I need an input statement for the toppings as well. What would you like on your sandwich? Input. So this is what the basics of pseudocode are. It's nothing real fancy. It's nothing complicated. It's just a plan that you write before you write your program. Okay. So let's see. Take a look at the following example and select the C tips on writing good pseudocode. All right. Program purpose. Write a program to take someone's sandwich order. They should provide details about the sandwich, including the name and what's on it. After the order is taken, it should be repeated back to the user. Okay. So that was the instructions they were given for their program. And so then they wrote the pseudocode. It said, ask the user for name of sandwich, bread, meat, toppings. See, toppings, that includes any commands or important components to make your program function correctly. Use everyday language, but include any functions you use to help you plan. And then here's the output. Describe what you want the output to be to the program. Print a message with the sandwich details with name, bread, meat, and toppings. So here, we kind of knew what the program was going to be before we got down to this part. Here's the instructions for the program. But looking at the pseudocode up here, we figured that out. Yeah, it's taking someone's sandwich order and then repeating what they gave us. So that's what pseudocode is. And this was good pseudocode because we were able to know what the instructions were before we even saw the instructions. So ready to try your hand at writing pseudocode? Go for it. So let's follow the instructions on this slide. Pseudocode sample, define main, answer, input, what do computers like to eat? Print, you answered that computers like to eat. Answer, print, if you answered chips as microchips, you're correct. So the goal is to write a program that asks the user to answer a joke and print the response to the screen. The pseudocode for this program, this was a very, very simple program, right? Just ask the user a riddle. The pseudocode could have been this for this program. Input, ask the user what computers like to eat. Output, display two messages. One will say what the user guessed, and the other will give the correct answer. Select run program. Pops up this window. What do computers like to eat? I'll say a mouse. You answer that computers like to eat a mouse. If you enter chips as a microchips, you're correct. Ha ha ha. Right, so compare the pseudocode and the Python code. Notice that each step of the pseudocode has been implemented in the program code. So it said first, ask the user what computers like to eat. Well, once they started their main function, because they defined their main function, the first line of code, answer equals input, what do computers like to eat? Notice how that does match their pseudocode. It didn't have the answer equals input part, but that's Python code. That's not necessary for pseudocode. That's the details of how we actually put it in Python. But all we needed to know was, okay, what are we asking the user? Then it says display two messages. Okay, so then we see two print statements in our code. It says one will state the user's guess. We probably wouldn't write it that way. We'd probably say one will tell what the user ordered or what the user answered. You know, tell what the user. We might not state the user's guess. It's that, you know, write that in whatever language feels comfortable to you. I mean, use words you feel like comfortable with. A lot of us don't talk like this. One will state the user's guess. You know, the first one will give their answer. And so our first print statement says you answered that computers like to eat, and then we gave whatever their answer was because we saved it right there in that variable called answer. So that's what that was in our print statement. You answer that computers like to eat, whatever they type. So that's why right there in our pseudocode. It says the other will share the correct answer. So the second print statement, as we would expect, if you answered chips, you're correct. Ha 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 ha. That is the correct answer to the riddle. So that's a nice pseudocode sample where we can look at the pseudocode that was written ahead of time and then the code that they wrote afterwards using this plan. All right, let's go to page 2 of this. Oh, look, we have define main function, but no code. So this says, write a program that asks the user to answer a joke, repeat the response, share the correct answer. So use the following pseudocode. So they gave us pseudocode. So there's already a plan. All we have to do is follow the plan to write our program. So input, ask the user what part of a computer does a spider use? All right, so let's write our code here. I'll make some space in there. We can call it user answer, whatever you want to call it, input, parentheses, and we're supposed to ask, I'm just going to copy it directly right here. Copy. What part of a computer does a spider use? Is there anything else I need to put? Let's see. Input. That's all the input I need. Then I need to display two messages. One's going to give the user's guess, and the other's going to share the correct answer, which is a webcam. So user answer. So then let's see. We need two display messages. So here's our first print. You answered plus user answer plus, and then I'm going to put a little period at the end to make it a nice looking sentence. So I'm concatenating. I'm telling it to print exactly what I put in the quotes. And notice I put a space after answered because I want there to be a space before whatever they typed. You answered, and then whatever they typed in, because that's what is saved right there. And then after theirs, I want you to just put a period. So I put that in quotes. Put a period after what they typed. So that's the first thing from my pseudocode. Now it says the other will share the correct answer. Let's see. What part of a computer does a spider use? The webcam. I hope you got that right. I could write that however I want to, but just as I'm going to share the correct answer. So let's run the program. What part of a computer does the spider use? I'll say World Wide Web. You got the World Wide Web. What part of a computer does the spider use? The webcam. Hope you got that right. So maybe I can take out a couple spaces there because I can see it goes off the screen. But web there. What part of a computer does the spider use? The webcam. So pseudocode, not terribly complicated. You just have to look at the instructions for your program and make a plan. Make a plan. What input, output. The only thing that's missing on this is calculations because there wasn't any needed. So if there was any calculations, we would say calculate this, calculate that, whatever. We don't have to put the exact code on how to calculate it. Just put it in your plan that so you don't forget to do that calculation. All right. So questions on pseudocode. It's pretty straightforward. Kind of like an English writing assignment. Hey, tell me your plan. You need to write a program that does this. Tell me your plan. So if we take that thought and we go to our welcome back program assignment that was assigned last week. All right. Program must be written in idle, comments, name date. So all of this is the same for every program. But then right here's what we have to figure out. An input statement does some kind of math, does a print statement, does some kind of loop. So let's see. We first have to decide what we want to write for that program. We might have too much freedom there. Like, what do I want to do? I'm going to write a program to, let's have it do a program that asks the user to multiply two numbers together. Display. This is a math game. Tell user they are going to multiply two numbers together. Randomly choose two numbers between 1 and 100. Ask user to guess the answer. Calculate the product, because that's what you get when you multiply two numbers together. Yeah, I can do it this way if you want. Output, display users guess, display correct answer. Or I could do the output of, let's see, check to see if user is correct. Output, tell user if they are right. Give correct answer if not. So the math game. Tell the user they're going to multiply two numbers together. Randomly choose two numbers between 1 and 10. Ask the user to guess the answer. Calculate the product. Check see if their guess equaled the product. The output would be tell the user of the right, correct answer if they're not. And if I want to say input right here, just so I know that's the input right there, I can do that because I'm asking the user. I'll indent that to show that's part of the input. So that's just some nice little random code for a program that I would use a loop, maybe to choose these numbers, or somewhere I'm going to use check see if your answer is correct. That's going to be an if statement, which we actually learned this week. So I might not have an if statement in the welcome back program if I didn't already know how to do it. There's my math calculation. There's my print statement. I'll have a couple of print statements. There's my input statement. That should meet everything that's required in here. Input statement does math, does print, and I'll figure out I can use a loop to choose my two numbers. Something like that. Okay. So I want to use this time. We got 20 minutes left of class. To help, is anyone stuck trying to write the program? Is anyone writing a program going, I'm getting errors, I don't understand how to do it, or I want to do this and I don't even know how to write code that starts that, or I'm lost or I'm confused? Is there any way I can help if you haven't got your program turned from last week? And some of you don't, because you're still trying to figure this out if you're new to class, or you're still trying to get out of the break funk. If you're from last semester, like, man, my brain's still in a haze from the holidays, Mr. Brock. I haven't got back to writing programs. So can we look at any specific type code? Do you know where to find the programming window again? Let's review that again, because some of you may still be struggling with that. You remember you have to go to a lesson. Any lesson, anything that has the word lesson on it, lesson, anything has a lesson. There's a lesson. Let's go to decisions lesson. If you're on a lesson screen, at the menu at the top, you have the little choices up there that has idle right there. And when you click idle, when you choose idle, that pops open your programming window. There it is. There's where we write our code right here, Python idle. When you run your program, it'll put the output down below. So there is the window that you use, idle. Next to it, and some of you use this already, the Python API. Let's open that up. That brings open a pop-up window. I'll maximize that. Let's make that big. And it gives you a bunch of commands that are used in Python. If you need that to do some math, here's the random module. I say I was going to choose a random number. If I need to know how to choose a random number, I click on the random module and it says, okay, here's how I could do that. Rand int. So it'll choose randomly an integer between 39 and 92 in this case. So this tells me how to use that random integers. If I want to choose a number between 1 and 100, this is the command I can use. Now I'll have to, and it should, here's the, it doesn't talk about that. I think to do that, let me put this back in our programming window. It should tell you that you have to import that. Yeah, not defined. You have to use the random function, you got to import random. It says, I want to use the random function. So would you go get that function and bring it into my program so I can use it? So rand indent 100. So I'm going to start out saying number equals 0, and then say import random. Do I have to put an asterisk after that? Maybe there's an asterisk after it. Import random. Bad input on line 1. Okay, it didn't like the asterisk. Okay, I don't have to have that. There's something wrong with my rand int. I'm trying to do it exactly like it shows it. If I did this, it's supposed to put in just random between 0 and 1. I shouldn't even need to define what the number is. Rand int is not defined. Import random. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Okay, we'd have to do some debugging there because it didn't like the random integer. But this will show you all kinds of. If you need to know how to raise something to a power, here's the power function. Oh, this shows us you have to have the from math import. So we can copy this code and check it, test it in a Python window. It's not even displaying anything. Oh, because we didn't tell it to print anything. Print value. So this takes the number 4 and see we saved it as the num and save this as the exponent. And so value is the where we're storing our number, but we're taking the power. We're taking 4 to the power of 2.3. Here, let's just take it to the power of 2. 4 squared. See, 4 squared is 16. This is how you use exponents. If you want to take a number to a power, if I want to take 10 to the 4th power, that's 10,000. So we can go here to this API and it gives us a bunch of commands that we may not even know or we may have forgot. And this shows you the command you need to use that. So don't forget, you got this little library of commands to use. Little library of commands that you can use right here. But you can click right there in any lesson to get the idle window. All right. So is anyone needing help with any part of your program? Let me open up the GoGuardian window so I can see your screen. If you are, let me know. Raise your hand or something. Have it on your screen. We'll look at some things. I want to use this time to help you understand how to program if you have it. Remember, in Google Classroom, I've got all those videos up the top on the classwork page that explains how to use all these commands, what every program should have. How do you do an input statement? How do you do a print statement? All of those things are in Google Classroom. So if you haven't looked at that, you're like, I don't know how to do this. Start there. I tell you how to do input, I tell you how to do all those type of things. So check that out first if you're lost. But I want to help you if you're struggling on anything at this point right here. And let me look to see, since I've got it here, how many people haven't turned this in yet? Because I think there's still several. Oh yeah, there's lots of you that have not turned this in yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, there's over half the class. Yes, Liliana.
Okay, I have a question about like the mini program you showed us
Yes.
because I didn't really understand how like Python Idle worked with programming and like if it did pictures or if it was like you wrote the words and it just printed like a little statement. I didn't really understand how that worked until now.
Okay.
So with the model you showed us,
Yes.
the like answer input, are, would it be like in idle? Would it be like set as answer input and then you would put in parentheses like whatever the user inputs for the answer? I don't really know how to do that. I'm kind of lost.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it. So, what are we asking the user? Let's just talk about that. Or is that where we're talking about with the little pseudocode I wrote, and we're going to ask the user to put two numbers multiplied together?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's see. We're gonna generate two numbers here, and when I was talking about the that's what I did wrong in that too. Let's put this up on the screen and play with that code. So I'm going to start with every program has to have your name, date. Let's see, what is today? The 15th, 1/15, 25. I'm writing this program, and I go math game is what I'm calling it. Define main. So I have to put that import random, and I know what I did wrong with that. Import random. And let's see, my pseudocode said, where's my pseudocode? I still have that. Okay, tell the user to multiply two numbers together. So the first thing I'm going to say is print, welcome to my math game where you get to multiply two numbers together. That's the first thing I did. Then it said in my pseudocode I made up, randomly choose two numbers between 1 and 100. I think what I did was random.rand integer, I think is how that works. But I need to save that. I don't want to just choose it. So I'm going to say this is number 1. Sorry, number 1 equals. Now, I want to be able to test this as I go along. So I need to go down here at the end. After I write my main function, at the end, you got to put this little main parentheses, because it won't do anything if I don't put that, because that tells it, okay, that's the end of my main function. Go ahead and execute it. Do my main function. And until you do this, it won't run anything. So look, if I miss this, there's nothing. It's not printing anything. It's not doing anything. So if I put the main function at the bottom, now at least it does that. It prints something. But I want to test it while I'm working it. So I'm going to tell it to print number 1, just so I know that it did choose a number. 87. Okay, it chose it. If I run it again, now it's 82, 97, 6, 28. Okay, that's working. It's choosing a random number. So I need to choose another number because my pseudocode said I'm going to randomly choose two numbers. Number 2 equals random.rand integer 1/100. So let me test that as well. Print number 2, just so I know it's doing it. 61 and 60, 85 and 16, 50, 56. Okay, it's choosing two numbers. All right, if I want to make it easy for us, just since we're playing with it, let's do numbers between 1 and 10, just to play with. Like we're writing this for our second grade little brother. All right, so I've chosen my two numbers. Now I said, ask user to guess the answer. That's an input statement. If you've watched my little video on how to do an input statement, you'll see this. But let's say, okay, I want to move these down. Those were just for tests. I don't even need those. I know that's working. I was just testing. So I'm going to ask the user to multiply these two numbers together. So I need to save whatever their answer is. I can just call it answer. That's just a variable. And now what does answer equal? Well, it's going to equal, and they're going to enter a number. So I'm going to tell it it's an integer. Input, what is, and I have to put number 1, whatever number 1 is, number 1 multiplied by, and then whatever number 2 is. And since it's a number and this is a string of letters, you have to use this str command. Anytime, if you're printing words and numbers in the same space, you have to tell it, treat this number like it's a string. You'll see that on the math video too. Anytime. Otherwise, it may work with it. Let's try it without it. Since we're not doing anything, let's see if it gives us an error before I put that in there. All right. Okay. It could be an error down there. Did I do enough? Oh, I didn't do enough closing parentheses. Okay. I have 1, 2, 3 open. Oh, I closed one, so I have 2 open. 3 open. I got to have 3 closing. So let's try this again. Yeah, I have to put the string on there. It doesn't like that. STR. It says cannot concatenate string and integers. So I have to put the little string on there. Say treat all of it like it's a string. Number is not defined. Oh, I didn't put number 2. I put the wrong variable. Number 1, number 2. I have to make sure I'm using the same name because I told it to print something and it didn't know what it was. I don't have anything called number. Okay, there it is. What is 2 multiplied by 3? I put my guess in there, but I didn't tell it to do anything with it. What did it get my guess? Oh, wait a minute. Good job, Elijah. Print answer. So I'm just testing right here to make sure it's checking my answer. What's 1 multiplied by 10? 10. And it does get my answer because it printed it right there. So that is the answer of what I entered. So I've done this. I've asked the user to guess the product. Now I need to calculate the product. Python needs to figure the answer itself. So I'll put some space in here, just make this easier to read. Okay, so product, that's what I'm going to call it because that's what you get when you multiply, equals number 1, and use an asterisk to multiply in Python. Product equals number 1 times number 2. So I've done the math. Now I need to see if the user is correct. So I'm doing the if statements that we just learned this week. If product equals answer, I think I gotta have a colon after that. Print, you are correct. Otherwise, let's see. If product does not equal answer, print the answer. Oh, let's see. The answer was, and then put what the answer really is. Product, a string product.
Do you have to put print after like the number 1 and the number 2 random things in order for it to work in the program?
Here, after this,
Like after you did the number 1 and the number 2 with the random radians,
right?
do you have to put the print of number 1 and number 2 underneath of it for it to work, or you print?
No, only if I want to put that on the screen down here. And I did it earlier just to check to make sure it was working.
Okay.
I had it printed earlier just to make sure it was generating numbers between 1 and 10 or 1 and 100, and it was working. So I deleted those print statements because that's not part of my program. I'm not going to have it just print what those numbers are, except for I'm having it tell the user what those numbers are in the statement. So I was just doing that to test to make sure it was giving me what I wanted.
What does the sentence under it say? I'm sorry, I can't read it. It's like
I'm sorry. That must be an internet connection issue. That happens sometimes. This line 13 here underneath the number 1, number 2.
Yeah.
It says answer equals, and then this is an input statement. But the first thing I put is an INT because I'm telling Python whatever the person enters here is going to be an integer. Because I have to tell it this is a number. They're not typing words, they're typing a number. Because Python will treat numbers different than they will words. So I'm telling it this is a number. And then I have parentheses and I have an input. So this is an input statement. And so everything I put after the input statement down here is what it's going to put on the screen. In the little box where it pops up at that, it's going to say what is, and I told it to print number 1, whatever number 1 is. What is number 1 multiplied by number 2? So when I run the program, that's what's going to pop up on the screen. It's going to say what is, and then it's going to print whatever that first number it chose was. And then it's going to say multiplied by, and then it's going to print whatever the second number it chose was. So then I calculated to see what those two numbers multiplied together is. The product is number 1 times number 2. Because if I'm asking them to do it, I need to know what it is so I can check to see if they're right. So now it says if the product equals their answer, print you're correct. But if it does not equal their answer, print the answer was and tell them what the answer was. And that's really kind of the end of my program right there. I don't need anything else, because if I look at my pseudocode, tell if they're right or give the correct answer if they're not. So let's run it to see if this actually works. Oh, I've got an error on line 17. I did not close the quotes. See, I put a quote at the beginning. I didn't put a quote at the end. That caused me an error. All right, let's try it again. What is 5 multiplied by 7? 35. You are correct. All right, so it worked. Let's put in the wrong answer to make sure that part works. Run the program. What is 3 multiplied by 9? It's 246. Oh, the answer was 27. So this is a very simple program that just chooses 2 random numbers and asks the user to multiply those numbers together. Now, this is between 1 and 10. You can make it harder by saying choose a number between 1 and 100. So then they got to multiply 27 times 81 in their head and give an answer. You know, it's like, oh, that's a lot harder. So you can make it as hard or as easy as you want. But this is just a simple program that I wrote some pseudocode for here. A little math game. And then we wrote code to actually do that. And this does meet the requirements of last week's program. It has an input. It has a print. It does a math calculation. Oh, it doesn't have a loop. I got to put a loop in it, really. So I could always do something like while answer. Oh, let's see what I got to do that. Answer equals yes. And then put all of this in a loop where I could do another input right before this, and I could say answer equals input would you like to play a math game? Oh, question mark. Yes/no. And while the answer is yes, it'll go through this. Otherwise, it'll skip everything. Wait, I have too many spaces there. Oops. Oh, print. Okay, maybe next time. I'll have something where, oh, I don't want to. Yeah. Well, answer equals yes. Thanks for coming. I'll put thanks for coming at the end. So then I just added this loop. Oh, do I have to have a colon at the end of that? Oh, I got to have 2 equals. That's what I got to have. Would you like to play a math game? Yes. Then it says, what's 9 multiplied by 5? It's 45. You're correct. Thanks for coming. But at the beginning, if I didn't say yes, if I say no, it just says thanks for coming. See, it skipped everything. I put a loop in it to ask, do you want to play? Would you like to play a math game? And if they say yes, then it plays the math game. If they didn't say yes, this is a while loop. If the answer is not yes, then it skips the math game and just says, thanks for coming. I could put this print statement. I can move this print statement if I want to, where it doesn't even print it unless they say yes. Doesn't even print it unless they say yes here and now. Would you like to play a math game? If I type, yes, I certainly would, it doesn't let me play because it has to equal exactly yes. So, all right, well, programming folks, we're actually out of time. What I want you to do is, if you have this program started and you're having a problem with it, copy it, paste it into an email, and send it to me, and let me help you with it. I'm going to tomorrow. No, I think I need to do this Friday. You'll have advisory that you have from 10:30. So I'll do it from 11 to 12. 11 to 12, I'll have this meet open. If you need help on anything, come to this class. It's voluntarily. You don't, it's not required, but come to class between 11 and 12 on Friday if you need individual help on writing this, because I want you to get more comfortable with this. And I know we don't have much time here in class today.